Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Book Nerd Nails. Today's set is inspired by Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. If you have not read the Ruinous Love Trilogy by her, I highly recommend that you check it out. And if you're a book talk girly like me, who also loves to do nails, please like, subscribe, and comment which books I should recreate next. I've decided to do something a little different in this video than I did with Butcher and Blackbird, so here is your spoiler and trigger warning for this video. So first, spoiler warning, if you have not already read Leather and Lark, some of the things I may talk about may spoil some of these scenes for you. And a quick trigger warning that this is about a dark romance book, so please check your trigger warnings before you read this book or before you listen to this video or watch it as I do my nails. Another quick disclaimer, I am not a professional. I'm just a girl who loves to read but also loves to have pretty nails, so I hope you enjoy and stick around for the story I'm about to tell and the nails I designed along the way. So Leather and Lark has two main characters, the first being the female main character, which is Lark Montague, who is also featured in Butcher and Blackbird as Sloane's best friend. Lark is very sunshiny and bright, beautiful girl who looks like she has her whole life put together. But Lark also hides some very dark secrets from those around her. Next is the male main character, which is Lachlan Kane, which is the oldest brother of Rowan Kane from Butcher and Blackbird. We see a little bit of them in Butcher and Blackbird, but not enough. So Leather and Lark was such a great way to get to know these characters, and I thoroughly enjoyed it so much. Lachlan is a very dark and broody, roguish Irishman who is also a contract deleter in this story. We also see ties back to Butcher and Blackbird and some of the characters that were introduced in that. So we will be talking a little bit about the Phantom, Aunt Ethel. If you've read this series, I adore Ethel's character so much. So with all that out of the way, let's get started on the story of Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. So the story starts off from Lark's point of view. Lark has just deleted somebody, a very bad guy, and she calls her family for help because her family is very wealthy, very well known and prominent. Well, her family gets in contact with Lachlan Kane's boss. Remember, Lachlan Kane is also a contract deleter, but he also helps clean up messes like this. So when Lachlan arrives on scene, he gets this idea in his head that Lark is some spoiled rich girl who caused an accident, and now he has to spend his time cleaning up her mess. They do not get along. Their very first meeting together is just terrible, but in the best way. It builds all the tension for the rest of the book. After Lachlan helps clean up Lark's mess, he then puts her in the trunk of his car, which she was not happy about. But of course, Lark is smart, so she gets her way out of this situation, which then causes a lot of problems for Lachlan with his boss. So after this first encounter between Lachlan and Lark, they don't see each other again for a while. And the next chapter switches to Lachlan's point of view, where he's with his boss, Leander. Now, if you have not listened to the Audible for Leather and Lark, it is hilarious listening to Leander speak. I did not expect this very posh old man, this kind of unhinged. If you thought the characters in Butcher and Blackbird were unhinged and derailed, Leander has nothing on them. This man enjoys torturing people. There's also a scene in this chapter with pizza smoothies. Trigger warning for that. I will not completely spoil that, but just know Brynne Weaver loves to spoil food for people. In Butcher and Blackbird, it was cookies and cream ice cream. If you know, you know, and I'm sorry that you know. Another thing about Leander is he holds grudges. Lachlan is at a point in his life where he wants to retire from being under this contract with Leander. He feels like he's paid his debts to him, but Leander will not let him out of this because of how he messed up with Lark Montague. See, Leander lost his contracts with this family because of Lark slipping away from Lachlan during their first encounter. This is again what caused all this trouble for Lachlan with his boss, but it also comes into play on how he gets out of trouble with his boss. After Lachlan leaves this meeting with Leander and the pizza smoothies, he goes to Rowan and Salone's apartment in the city to celebrate their engagement. They're having a huge party with all their family and friends. This is where the second chance encounter happens between Lachlan and Lark. Now, this one happens a little bit differently because when they see each other, they don't recognize each other from their first encounter. So things get kind of hot and heavy, and they kind of have this instant spark between the two of them and this beautiful chemistry where it's almost love at first sight. Now, this doesn't last long before Lachlan says something in his deep Irish accent, and Lark immediately catches on to him being there that night at the docks. So, of course, this throws things into a tailspin where now they hate each other all over again. So they go their separate ways, and everybody can kind of feel the tension around these two now. Salone's asking questions, Rowan's asking questions. Neither one of them wants to answer on how they know each other or why they're so mad at each other. After this, it introduces Lark's family. And Lark's family is very prominent and very shady, including Aunt Ethel, but she was honestly one of my favorites out of the Montague family in this story. So while Lark is visiting her family home, her mother and her stepfather and her sister are there, along with her Aunt Ethel. Now, Ethel is scheming, and she sets this up so that Lark overhears a conversation between her mother and her stepfather. Lark quickly learns that someone is targeting their family. Every 40 days, somebody from their family or somebody that they know has been found unalived in different ways. Now, Lark's family assumes that this is no other than Lachlan Kane taking his revenge because they ended their contracts with his boss. So when Lark hears this information, she doesn't immediately jump to conclusions, but she does go to her Aunt Ethel and tries to dig a little deeper into this. Now, Aunt Ethel, she's also done her own digging, and she's got little bits of information, but she also warns Lark that not only do they think Lachlan Kane is involved, they also think that if her family goes after Lachlan Kane, Rowan and Salone will retaliate. And Ethel warns Lark that Rowan and Salone could also be targeted if her family decides to get revenge on Lachlan Kane. During this conversation, Ethel kind of alludes to a way that Lark can save Lachlan while also saving Rowan and Salone, a way to protect them in a way that her family could not deny. After this conversation with Ethel, Lark now knows what she needs to do in order to save everyone. So next is the Butcher and Blackbird wedding, which was talked about more in Leather and Lark than it was Butcher and Blackbird. But during the wedding, during their dance as best man and maid of honor, Lark proposes to Lachlan that they get married. At first he kind of laughs it off and doesn't understand, but Lark informs him of her family and what their plans are, and that she's worried for the sake of Rowan and Salone. So Lachlan, of course, agrees that he wants to protect his brother and Salone, his new sister-in-law. So after the wedding, Lachlan and Lark sneak off and go to the courthouse to get married. Their only witness is, of course, Aunt Ethel, who thought this was a great plan from the beginning. So they get married, and now they have to live this life together and try to convince everyone else that they're actually in love when they can't stand to be in the same room with each other for more than 2 minutes. Now, this causes a lot of issues in the relationship, and it's very strenuous. But it gets to one of my favorite parts, that after they're married and Lachlan moves in to the warehouse that Lark currently lives in, she's working on an epoxy table. Now, Lark likes crafts. She also loves glitter. I tried to do a lot of glitter in this nail set because it just felt so much like her. If you read Butcher and Blackbird, you know that Lark often refers to things as gold star. So I did a lot of gold stars on this nail set, and of course some glitter, and I did paint this gold coffin on my thumbnail. But Lark is working on this gold epoxy table. It's coffin shaped, and she's going to put it in her living room. Well, the interaction between Lachlan and Lark is very awkward, and during this encounter, she's sanding the table, and she accidentally sands too far down, because what Lachlan doesn't know is that Lark just unalived somebody and put them in the table. Now, when she's sanding, she messes up and sands too far down. So she convinces Lachlan to go get her a black star pan so she can put a black star on top of this. She then makes him help her get this upstairs and into their living room. After they've been living together for a few days, they decide that it's now time to sit down and have a meeting with Lark's family and also have Lark meet Lachlan's boss, Leander. First, they go to lunch with Lark's family, and everything's very tense because, as you know from earlier, they think Lachlan Kane is behind the disappearances in their family. But one of the things that they always honor is marriage. So now they have to back off from Lachlan Kane as well as Rowan and Sloane. This lunch does not go well, but the next meeting is with Leander. This meeting was also one of my favorite scenes in the book because Leander knows who Aunt Ethel is. He also knows that that is Lark Montague's aunt. But Aunt Ethel has a business. Her company makes muffins, and she's known as the queen of muffins in some places. So during this interaction with Leander, Lark decides to gift him a basket full of muffins. These were sent specifically from Aunt Ethel herself. And as Leander is eating these muffins and talking about how amazing they are, he suddenly falls out in the floor. Now, Lachlan starts to freak out because his boss is just passed out, and he was obviously poisoned by Auntie Ethel. But they quickly move on, and they go into this other room to begin the investigation into the disappearances of Lark's families. They start going through old contracts and records, trying to see if they can find anybody related to the disappearances. There's also a point where Lark searches a name and then quickly deletes the information. While Lachlan doesn't ask her about it right away, it does come into play later on in the story. During this time, Lachlan and Lark start to kind of build a connection under the understanding that they are there to protect the two people that they love most. A new character is also introduced during this time. He is known as the Phantom. He is in the last couple chapters in Butcher and Blackbird, but he plays a huge part in Leather and Lark. See, the Phantom is the brother of a person that Rowan and Sloane unalived in Butcher and Blackbird. He is now seeking his revenge against Rowan and Sloane by targeting Lachlan and Lark. Now, the Phantom is very old Western, Texan, and very Christian and religious, and he has a lot of rantings and dialogue in this book that are very unsettling. He also likes to take his time, and he's stalking Lachlan and Lark throughout this book. He also makes an appearance to Lachlan in his shop. As just a regular customer, Lachlan works as a leather worker. He has his own store where he custom makes things for people made out of leather and also restores things. So he has this interaction with the Phantom. He only knows him by his first name, which is Abe. And while Lachlan's a little unsettled by his presence, he doesn't see him as a threat just yet. After we are introduced to the Phantom, we kind of go back in time and we talk a little bit about Lark and Lachlan's past. Lark suffers from a lot of trauma from her childhood that involved the death of her father in a very traumatic way, especially for such a young child. Again, trigger warning, it's in the book, it's a dark romance. Please check them. And while Lark shares a little bit about her past, Lachlan opens up about his and how they got away from his abusive dad. I will not go into the details of that story. It is very dark and very twisted, but he also tells her during this that that is how he was introduced to Leander and how he kind of saved him and his brothers from the life that they were in, which is why he owes Leander such a big debt. But while these two start to confide in each other about the traumas and their past, they also start to grow closer, slowly. It's just a little bit at a time. Now, I wouldn't call this book a slow burn, but it's certainly not fast either. But the tension and build-up was so worth it in the end. So since they've grown a little bit closer, Lachlan starts snooping through Lark's things. He's trying to figure her out and figure out why she's hiding so many secrets. While he's snooping, he finds this hidden compartment behind a Keanu Reeves poster. She is absolutely obsessed with these Constantine movies, and he finds this little stash of knickknacks that he's not quite sure what to do with. So he asks Lark about them when she comes home. To his surprise, each of those represents one of her deletions, and she's turned it into a craft. Again, she likes things with glitter and gold and sparkles of all kind. I won't spoil all the things that she did, but maracas and snow globes are one of the things that she has turned her trophies into. Lachlan does not know what to do with this information. He is so taken aback by the fact that sweet, bright Lark, that's also got a mean streak, is a multiple deleter just like him, his brother Rowan, and Sloane. This kind of brings them closer as Lark shares more about who she is with Lachlan, and Lachlan decides then that he's going to kind of take care of her. He's going to honor his vows to her. Lachlan starts falling hard and fast for Lark past this point, and he decides to gift her with revenge. See, Salone's first deletion was because of a man that was abusing Lark and also started abusing Salone. Lachlan starts to fall hard and fast after this point, and he sets up a little sleep retreat for Lark to help her feel better. But that night, he sneaks her out of the retreat just to gift her her revenge. So Lark and Salone attended Ashbourne University, and it talks a little bit about this in Butcher and Blackbird as well, but there was a man there that abused both Lark and Salone. That was Salone's first deletion, and Lark felt like it should have been hers, that she should have been able to take that step and protect Salone as well. This is what started her on her journey of multiple deleter. So, Lachlan has now kidnapped the guy that helped cover it up and has him waiting and ready for Lark when she gets to this small cabin in the woods with Lachlan. Lachlan allows her to exact her revenge, and this in a way kind of heals Lark. This is also at the point where she starts to fall for him as well. He also brings her this tool bag full of craft supplies and glitter just to make the occasion more special in their weird way. I think it's at this point that Lark finally realizes how much she loves Lachlan and how much she cares for him. This sets up for the next scene, which is Lark's performance. Lachlan has never heard her sing before or watched her perform, so this night he gets to go with her, and there's a little jealousy with other people that are involved, but this also turns into a very spicy scene in the book. This is the very first spice scene. I will not spoil that here. You'll just have to read the book or listen to the audio to find out what happens, but it was very good. Bryn Weaver does a really good job of building up the tension throughout this whole book to finally lead to this spicy love scene between Lachlan and Lark. And I think she did an amazing job with it. Now, after this, of course, now they're in love and everything's happy and great, except for people in Lark's family are still disappearing or dying every 40 days. But during this performance, someone else also sneaks in to watch Lark, and we see that the Phantom has come back into the picture. He makes it a point to introduce himself to Lachlan and Lark again in this performance, and he says some weird, unsettling things to them. So they just kind of ignore him and go on about their lives. But this is when things start to get really spicy and a lot of romance between Lachlan and Lark. Again, I will not spoil those spicy scenes for anybody. You have to read the book or listen to the audio for that. As they're still on their search for who's responsible for the deletions in Lark's family, they think that they might have it pinned down to this one guy until he also winds up deleted. And they start to realize that Aunt Ethel might be next. In the next chapter, the Phantom reappears, and this time in Ethel's room at the nursing home. He starts to speak to Ethel, and she guesses that he's there to get rid of her. He admits as much to her, but he talks in weird phrases and scripture throughout and asks her to repent for her sins that she may have committed. Now, Ethel is a crazy old woman that does not back down from this threat in her room. She knows that she's dying. She knows she won't be here much longer, and she continues to fight throughout this scene with the Phantom. She continues to mock him up until he tells her that his final target is Lark. Now, this makes Ethel very upset, and she warns him that if he goes after Lark, he'll have Lachlan to deal with. The Phantom is not deterred by this, and he does end up ending Ethel's life in this scene. Before Lark is aware of her Aunt Ethel's passing, she goes to a diner with Rose. Now, Rose is somebody who's spoken a little bit about in Butcher and Blackbird, but she will be the female main character in Sparrow and Scythe, and the male main character for that one will be the final Kane brother, Fionn Kane. After this meetup with Rose, Lark gets a phone call from her mom telling her of Aunt Ethel's passing. She calls to tell Lachlan about what happened and decides to meet him at the assisted living home that Ethel was in. First, she decides to go home before she Ubers there, and this is where the Phantom is lying in wait. There's a fight scene between Lark and the Phantom. Again, trigger warning for this scene. Lachlan then arrives at the assisted living home just to find out that Lark's not there. When she doesn't show up, they begin to panic, and Lachlan starts investigating. He quickly puts the pieces together that he knows who took Lark, and that is Abe Midas, or aka the Phantom. So he rushes back to Lark's apartment with the help of Rose and Fionn. After putting some pieces together, they realize where the Phantom has taken Lark, and Lachlan and Rose leave to go handle that while leaving Fionn there at the apartment. Next, it switches to Lark's point of view, where she awakens in a rotary batch oven. You will hear this mentioned throughout the book some as a joke between her and Lachlan, but she awakes in this giant oven, and the Phantom is outside the door taunting her and trying to get her to admit to things. Lachlan busts in here to save the day, but he just walks right into the Phantom's trap. The whole point was to lure Lachlan in and use Lark to do it, and then he could get rid of both of them before getting rid of Salone and Rowan. The Phantom then gives Lachlan an impossible choice. He informs Lachlan that Rowan and Salone are on their honeymoon, and he has strapped something to their car that could detonate with the push of a button. He then tells Lachlan that he must choose between Rowan and Salone or Lark, who's still locked in the oven. This is impossible for Lachlan, so Lark decides that she should get to be the one to choose. So she then tells the Phantom that she chooses Lachlan and to let Rowan and Salone live. Lachlan is not happy with this choice, but of course the Phantom is, so he turns on the oven with Lark in it. There's then a fight between Lachlan and the Phantom outside this oven, and all Lark can hear is the commotion of them fighting and the oven as it turns on. She then hears a gunshot that silences everything. Not long after this, Lark is let out of the oven by Lachlan. So then we get to see this happy, beautiful reunion between Lachlan and Lark after their lives were just threatened. Now Lachlan is still very unhappy with Lark's choice to sacrifice herself for Rowan and Salome. Of course, all she's worried about is if they're okay or not, and they are. Don't worry about them. But there's one person in this scene that was not okay, and that is Rose. Rose was the one who actually pulled the trigger this time, and she was also severely injured during this altercation with the Phantom. Now, it doesn't say much about this, it just kind of ends, and it begins again with Lachlan and Lark going on this beautiful honeymoon that they had joked about earlier in their relationship, and you get another really, really spicy scene at the end of this book. Again, not going to spoil that. So now that we've come to the end of Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver, I want to thank you guys so much for listening. If you've stuck around this far, I really enjoyed this book, and I hope that if you go into it and read it that you will too. Again, please check your trigger warnings, and I'm so excited to start Sparrow and Scythe next. I hope you enjoyed this video, including me painting my nails. I thought they turned out really cute, and they were very simple, but reminded me so much of Lark throughout this book with all of the glitter. It's kind of hard to see in the video that the glitter was black with a aqua blue glitter that kind of matches the book. But I'm so excited to start Sparrow and Scythe next and finish the Ruinous Love Trilogy by Bryn Weaver. I'm sure I'm going to love it as much as I've loved the first two books. And I'm so excited to see how the characters of Rose and Fionn Kane turn out, because they seem to be polar opposites from what I've seen so far in both Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark. Fionn Kane seems to be more straight-laced than his brothers. He's a doctor. And Rose is from the circus, so I'm so excited to see how that storyline is going to play out. If you have any book recommendations or nails that you think I should recreate based off books, then please comment them down below. My TBR is currently 10 miles long, but of course I am still adding to it, so any recommendations that you have are completely welcome. But you can also check me out on TikTok and Instagram. I will post those handles at the end of this video. And that brings us to the end. Thank you so much again for sticking around, and I can't wait to see you guys again for the Sparrow and Scythe nail set. But first, here's the reveal of the Leather and Lark and Sparrow nail set that I've chosen to do this time. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next time.